Welcome to Where Her Heart Speaks, a show designed to challenge and disrupt ineffective thoughts and behaviors to help you not only embody peace, joy, calm, and certainty, but also to help you live the life you've always dreamed of living. Where Her Heart Speaks with Coach Catherine begins now. Welcome and welcome back. I am Catherine James, international speaker, best-selling author, trauma-informed coach, and your host for this show, Where Her Heart Speaks. I am excited, as you all know. You can probably, if you've been listening to me, tell when I am not by myself. There's a different tone that I notice shows up when I have another beautiful soul in the room with me, sharing space with me. So this week we have the opportunity to sit down and speak with Dr. Heather Tucker, and I am so excited. I met her not long ago, but her soul was so beautiful that I had to ask her to come and sit down and talk with us. So you get to take part in this beautiful conversation. Heather, tell me, do you want Heather, Dr. Heather? What do you prefer? What are you known by?
Oh,
Welcome.
thank you so much, Coach Catherine, for having me here. It is such an honor and pleasure to be here in your presence with you and your audience today. You can go either way. I mean, a title is just, it's not who I am. It's just something I did. A lot of my students call me Dr. Heather. A lot of my friends call me Heather. So yeah, it's all good. I will respond to either one for sure.
Yeah, did you guys catch that? This speaks to what I saw in her. She said a title is not who I am, it's just something that I did. I love it. So many people believe that the title is who they are. And so the level of awareness and the grace in which she just threw that out there. I wanted you all to catch that. So Dr. Heather is the founder of Another Level Living. Um, Another Level Living Incorporated is her business name. But Dr. Heather, before we jump into the business side of things, I would love for you to share just a little bit about who you are.
Okay. So I am Dr. Heather Tucker, and business-wise, I work with entrepreneurs who want to achieve success in business and life harmony so that they can stress less, strengthen their relationships, and lead with much more energy, ease, and momentum, and be able to work smarter and not harder and create their own time, money, and emotional freedom. And that comes a lot from my experience, my journey. I'm also the mom of three amazing children and the wife to an amazing Purple Heart Marine Corps veteran who did a couple of tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's there's so many other elements to me, right? And this is actually what I talk about with business and life harmony because it really is about creating peace on all sides. Not that we have to show up in it with a or change how we are when we're wearing a different hat, but let all of our hats that we wear come from this one amazing person that each one of us are called to be and have and do. And that makes having a natural byproduct. So my background is actually in something totally different than coaching and training. It's actually in IT. And I got my PhD really young, 27. One of the things that my parents told me when they're also both PhDs too, and they said, Heather, the one thing that no one can ever take away from you is what you know. And so it's so important to be able to learn as much as you can, to be all that you can be. And with that, I thought that means just going forward, going gun ho, and getting as much education, getting my level of success in my career. But what happened was when I reached the height of my IT career, so much inside was not where I thought it would be. A lot of times we chase happiness, we chase these things, and we get what we think is going to bring us happiness, and it doesn't, right? So I love to be able to guide people into stepping into purpose, fulfillment, freedom. On the other side of all fear is a whole new level of faith, freedom, and fulfillment, not just for you, but for everyone in your entire world, right? So, and when I was working in IT, my specialty was human computer interaction, how we interact with computers, how they interact with us, how to be able to help computers be able to better interact with us. And we see a lot of the fruits of that work even as we're now in the whole AI world and everything. But before the human computer interaction, the piece that we're missing that is being lost is the human interaction. Being able
Yes.
to understand what's happening not only with you, but also with all those people around you. And where it can be like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, or sometimes it's even difficult to be in your own skin, or to be, it's not, may not be safe to be you. Well, I'm here to say that that is totally not the case. Like stepping into all the amazing natural gifts and talents, and each person has their own unique, like rubies, you know what I'm saying? Like gems that are just waiting to come out and be shared with the world in a way that works authentic with your soul.
Yes, 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 yes. Ooh. So you said a whole mouthful in that, and so many things. I'm listening and I'm thinking, you were never supposed to be in IT. Like when we think about the I don't know, poster child of IT individuals who go into IT, they're more recluse, more introverted, more they like to be alone as opposed to with others. Most of them are not as open as you have just displayed. Now, maybe there was some transformation that took place, but I'm listening to you and I chuckle because we have a few things in common. When I first graduated high school, IT was where I was headed. I thought that that was my world because at that time I didn't like people, I didn't want to be around people, and I knew you could make a whole lot of money in that field. That's the one thing, but also the being gung ho, going forward, gathering information. And I'm bringing that back up for a reason. I believe a lot of those in the audience and my audience, that is what they have been conditioned to believe, and also the road that they've taken. So I want to say thank you for getting out of IT and stepping into your real calling and your real purpose, which I believe is evident as you shine in this moment. Um, those that are listening, what I know is like you and I, we were told to go to school, get a good education. And the higher up you go, the greater your level of success. And what you said is we're chasing happiness. People chase happiness. And when you get there, you basically find that happiness doesn't live there. Now, that was my experience. And instead of stepping away, I continued to get more information, get more information. It was like the carrot just kept being in front of me and I could never grab it, and not realizing that the carrot was not my happiness. My happiness didn't live in the carrot. So, what kept me going after the carrot was fear. I didn't know what the other side looked like. And what you said is that fear, on the other side of fear, is faith, freedom, and fulfillment. I am curious and want to know how you came to that realization.
I'm so glad that you asked that. Okay. So, I also am really glad. A lot of people think that I am extroverted, right? Like, oh my gosh, I love people. Well, see, here's what happened. You know, the computers, it was my safe place, right? I
Yes.
always had a lot of difficulties with relationships. People brought me anxiety being around. And it's so interesting because my mom, she's like so community oriented. So she always had me in these things. And I know that when I would get around people, it would just bring up all this anxiety, all this fear. Like I wanted to be in the bubble and alone. What happened though was I also started to be aware of other people. I started seeing what's happening with deeply. So one of the things that I did when I was younger, I was like, okay, I need to make this a safe place for me. I'm here with all these kids. What am I going to do? And I would go and I would introduce myself. I would meet each one of them. And then after I met everybody in the room, then I could relax, right? But where was that coming from? What created that anxiety? What created that uncertainty? Because even when I got into my career and I'm briefing 4-star, 5-star generals, and I had to practice my presentation so it would be totally perfect so I wouldn't freak out, right? There's a difference in operating with that versus, you know what? It's safe to be me. Let me go ahead and come from this intrinsic side and just share. So when you quiet the mind, the soul speaks, right? So how did this lead on my journey? One of the things that happen in entrepreneurship, right? Our business, for those of you who are in business, is an extension of all that we are. How we go is how the business goes, right? So sometimes when we're on this journey of entrepreneurship, it will bring up and light up even the things from the past that have to be able to be let go of in order to leap forward. And a lot of times it brings up fear, it brings up uncertainty, it brings up, doubt. Where it all came from had a lot to do what I saw in my childhood. I ran away from the military. I then ended up marrying the military, only to recognize, wow, how much transformation I can be able to support in the military based on my experiences. So my first experience with entrepreneurship, and my parents are also entrepreneurs, but my first experience with entrepreneurships were from my grandparents. Right. So
Mm,
my grandfather, he sold tires, he sold coal. He had such a connection with the community. And here's what happened when I was 5 years old. He was murdered. He was
mm,
murdered. He was shot in the head and the heart. And one of the things that happened, we're taught if a tragedy happens, you just got to keep going. But if there's not this resolution of understanding, like how it impacted you,
mm,
it will be like this added weight as you're going into the future. So, what did that tell me about entrepreneurship when that happened? It's not safe to be around other people. It's not safe to shine. It's not safe to express myself. If I put myself out there, I might get killed or somebody else. All of those things had to be processed, had to be able to break free from in order for me to step in and share this message with no charge, with total understanding, with total gratitude, with total appreciation, like turning all that grief into gratitude. Well, fast forward to I always had difficulty with relationships, especially relationships with men. Oh my gosh, I used to think all men were assholes. That was my belief, right? So here's what was interesting. I would meet people and I would meet someone and it's like they're okay and then all of a sudden it's not okay. So I'm married to a Purple Heart Marine Corps veteran. He had a lot of tours, a lot of trauma, and it would be like everything was okay one moment and then all of a sudden it wasn't. See, like, what do you do when you have people that you're called to communicate with, you're called to connect with, but some of their stories are too difficult to share, or some of your stories are too difficult to share? Well, you heal them, especially the ones that are going on within you. You make them light and you share them from a place of empowerment so you can see what is being communicated and what's not communicating. You know how to best respond. And it's coming from this unconditional love place, not this resentment or bitterness or anger or frustration. All of those things just cause even more bitterness, anger, frustration. And it actually can take a toll on our body and our nervous system. So what I had noticed was that so my husband has post-traumatic injury, and then what I noticed was like, dang, I got some I don't know if you've heard of secondary PTSD because emotions are contagious, right? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I got some stuff I got to be able to break free from. Okay, cool. Understanding what was happening in the patterns of my mind, the patterns of my heart, whereas things would get so heavy, we can either fight or flight. right?
Yeah.
Or we can fly and step into the less thinking because it causes a lot of over analyzing and more trusting. So the beautiful part about this, when you understand what's going on inside, all those patterns, this is what Coach Catherine talks about all the time. Then you're able to eradicate those patterns and step into all that your soul is and let yourself shine from this inside place where you're actually like the lighthouse. You become like the lighthouse leader and you connect to the right people, you connect to the right place, and there's joy. Like, honestly, I was just thinking this morning, this is the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. And
Mm.
it's so funny because if people would know, like, there's a lot of stories there, but if people would have, if when I share with them the stories of all the trauma that I went through, they were like, "Oh my gosh, how in the world are you here? How are you able to function? Like, I don't understand." And I was like, "Well, there lies the beauty because it's not just about me. I had to get out of my own way." And when I got out of my own way and let God work through me and in me, then I can be able to hold the space in a bigger way, even with other people who've gone through some terrible things too. Because we don't have to have a great past to have a great future. So when I say on the other side of fear, I mean, I remember walking on eggshells, being afraid to speak, being afraid to even express or share what's going on as a fear of how somebody else is going to respond. And then
Mhm.
I recognize, oh, I can still be able to share what I need to share out of unconditional love. And I could just be able to hold the space or let them respond how they want to respond, but recognizing what is it my part of me, like, or is it part of them, or is it something I'm supposed to deal with? Is it something that God's supposed to deal with? I mean, there's all these things that are going to be happening, right? These patterns that we see. I was just sharing before we push play, about how I was 20 minutes away from what happened with Trayvon Martin. And I saw this pattern play out. I saw the devastation that it had on, especially on the Black community. Even though I was in a environment where there was only a few Black people and everyone else didn't look like me. They were mostly white and Spanish, but not a lot of people knew the devastation that it created within me. So, okay, fast forward, there's another situation that happens. There's another situation that happens. And what I recognize is as we continue to see these things happening, it can either take us down or it can be able to help build us up to make the next to make the future and the way forward, the better responses less more impactful. And what it comes down to is really stepping into your calling, whatever that is. This is why I left IT. I'm like, no, there's too much happening within my community. But the thing is, how can I be there for my community if there's still so much stuff going on within me?
Right.
So it goes to this great story that I don't know if you heard it, but there was a man and he sought to change the world and he
Mhm.
got frustrated because the world wasn't changing. Then he sought to change his community and he got frustrated because the community wasn't changing. And then he was like, okay, I just want to change my family. And then he got frustrated because the family wasn't changing. And it wasn't until he was on his deathbed that he realized that he was the one that had to change. Now, we don't have to wait 20, 30 years to get that lesson. We can get that lesson right now. I had an amazing my pastor on my show a couple or last week. And one of the things that he said, he's like, Heather, it's important to prioritize. A lot of times we're operating in these disaligned priorities. He said, you put God first. Now, whatever that means for you, everyone has a different relationship, different connection with the divine, but that is the first. Then he said, it's the family. Then the focus is on the family, and then it's the business. And it was so interesting because a lot of times when these significant emotional events happen, we change that priority. Okay, we got to put our business. If our business gets totally good, then our family's going to be good. But and then I realized after the conversation, well, what is the common denominator? The common denominator out of all of those relationships and those priorities is you. That's why, even though a lot of people think that self care may be selfish, is not. It's actually selfless Because when you actually step into all of your amazing you can have a better relationship with the divine, whatever that is. You can have a better relationship with yourself, which is even awesome. Like look in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, you're freaking amazing. As compared to, I remember I used to look in the mirror and hate everything I saw. Now I love every single thing I see. And if it's possible for me, then it's possible for every single person on this planet. And then you can show up in beautiful, unconditional love and forgiveness for your family, regardless of the things that have happened. A lot of times people see a challenge. We got about 50%, 60% of people getting divorced. Oh my gosh, this is too hard. Well, you know what? They're relying on their own thinking. Because when you get past all the battles that you can only see with your clear eyes, and you see the battles that are happening even behind the scenes trying to destroy it, then you are able to recognize, then you can be able to not have to fight, but you let the transformation happen. Because it's not necessarily just about the situation. How many times do we have families that have like a disagreement and they never talk again?
Mhm,
What
mhm,
happens to those kids after? What they don't even know who their people are. But in order to know where you're going, it's so essential to know where you've been. Like,
mhm.
because that way it's like all your wisdom from even your ancestors, they can line up to basically support you in what you're doing. Hmm. Okay, I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, that makes it easy. I don't have to, you've answered all of my questions.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I wanna just kind of go back over a couple of things that were said, just to kind of tie a bow around it a little bit, or
Okay.
bring association to those who are listening. You talked about, as you were coming into your career, how into entrepreneurship, how you found yourself butting up against some of your old stuff, right? And I will say, if we're stepping outside of our box, if we're doing anything different, we will come up against some of our old stuff. As I climb the corporate ladder, and I'm saying old stuff, that may be old conditioning. That is when we come up against with our internal fears. That's when you guys hear me talk all the time, our trauma responses. That means if my thing is perfectionism, if my response, my default system routes me to perfectionism, I am going to be the perfectionist. If it causes me to run away, as you mentioned, fight or flight, then I am going to go back to my comfort zone. And in all of that is an invitation to do the work, right? So often we talk, and I say we, and in this moment I'm referring to, say Heather and I, this language is normal for us. This language has become familiar. So when we talk about just being aware, I realize that for many, that level of awareness is not that simple. There is a journey that has to be taken to reach that level of awareness. Why? Because if you have been, I don't know, turning on the light, as I look at my light, a certain way all of your life, and now someone comes in and they change how that light is to be turned on, you are still, your default system is still going to turn that light on, want to turn that light on the way you've always done it. And it's not until someone comes in and say, hey, there's another option. We can turn the light on this way. And you be willing to explore that other option. So when we talk about doing the work comes as a result of you being willing to explore the other option. If you are not willing to explore the other option, then you will continue to go back to your default or your area of safety.
Mhm.
Safety being in your nervous system. Another thing that you said, I was trying to jot these notes down. um, you mentioned secondary trauma, and I just wanted to kind of explain that a little bit for those who are listening. You talked about seeing things and things tearing you down and things tearing you down. And again, if you all have been with me, you know my belief trauma is not the event, it's how your body responds to the event. So if it's tearing you down, then it's traumatic. If it's not tearing you down, it's not traumatic for you. Doesn't mean it's not traumatic for someone else, but tearing you down, meaning that it is having some type of impact on your nervous system that doesn't feel good. That is secondary trauma because it's not something that you experience firsthand, but something that you've witnessed. Okay.
And
And
I'm gonna can I add to that for a moment too?
yes.
Also, what happens a lot of time is if there was never any trauma in the person, then secondary trauma wouldn't even be a thing, right? Like you said, it wouldn't connect to anything. It wouldn't be traumatic. But this is also one of the our ways of recognizing where there could be trauma, if there is that reaction. See, because if there's nothing internally for it to connect to, even in your nervous system, your response is like, oh, that's interesting. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, right, like you feel it and you take it in, that lets you know it can even be a pattern of trauma, right? So when you break free from that pattern, you get to the root cause of whatever it is, then and you kind of this is where we kind of like release all the stuff from to the present. Then even if that pattern comes up again, then it won't be such discharge. But just wanted to say that because a lot of times yes, the energy is contagious, right? Our emotions and stuff are contagious, but if there's nothing inside for them to connect to, then you're right. You wouldn't impact
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And I love that when what you said, when when you release it, then it doesn't mean that it's not still there. And I think so often we get into conversations about, do you ever get over it? It doesn't ever go away, but the response is different. And this is when we get into neural pathways and rewiring and things like that. It's still there, but how we respond to it is differently. And when the nervous system, because I work more with the nervous system than the brain, the nervous system hijacks the brain, and we can't access this prefrontal cortex, then all we can do is respond, and that takes us back into fight or flight. But when you have released that energy, it may show up, but it's not showing up to the level of intensity that keeps you from accessing your prefrontal cortex where we do our reasoning and thinking and our making logical decisions. So it's so important as we are doing the work to understand the brain and the body does play on each other in tandem. But when you cannot access that part of your brain that helps you make great decisions, you are only going to respond from a state of survival.
Mm, so good. So good.
Um, and then it's so funny because you talked about, I love that story, and it comes right on the cusp. Last week I talked about people only being able to control themselves in the last episode, and the story just broke that all the way down. And that's how we are as humans, especially humans who are still stuck in our survival patterns. We want to control everything outside of us. We want to fix the world. We want to change the community. We want to change our family. We want to change our spouse. We want to change our children. And all that we can change is us, right? And when the gentleman in your story realized that, what you said is, once you change you, then you can show up in love for your children. You can show up in love for your spouse, for your family, for your community. For me, and what this show is all about is helping individuals, helping women get to that place. Like when
Right.
you first start with you and then have an ability to show up in love, we can change everything else. And not from a place of doing or forcing, but a place of serving. And I am just an avid believer that love conquers all. It may take a while, but if we are able to sit in love, and that love starts with self, it starts with self. Being able to do just what you said, look in the mirror every single morning and say, "You are amazing and I love you," and mean it, right? And mean it.
It creates this permanent, genuine joy when you
Mhm.
step in, and it's really about loving all who I am. So I appreciate you sharing about the responses to the nervous system, what happens in the nervous system. And as you were talking, I'm like, oh, this is why Coach Catherine and I are connected already, because it is that beautiful thing, understanding what the connection is between the mind, the body, and the heart, right? And so I look at it from my techie side, right? I talked about human computer interaction. The brain is like the central processing unit. You know how a computer has a CPU? The brain is a central processing unit for your whole body,
Now, I
right?
got to stop you. You're going to have to tell people what the CPU is.
Okay,
You
okay,
are
okay,
not
cool.
techie.
I know, right? Okay, cool. The CPU is the brain of the computer. Your computer would not be able to operate at all without the central processing unit where everything runs through it, right? So how the central processing, if it's nice, if it's efficient, is on its amazingness, then your computer is like a smooth sailing machine. But then what happens if something goes on with your CPU? It's not functioning, right? You may have some glitches in the system. Like that's one of the things that happens. So that part about the mind, well, a lot of people don't, what I didn't know, I had no idea about my mind. There were these automatic behaviors, these automatic patterns. But then when I learned how my mind worked, and how I can see how other people's mind works. No one's computer, no one's mind is the same. The funniest thing is that we think everybody's mind should be exactly the same. That's like the biggest myth to debunk right now because everyone's mind is completely different. And when you understand your mind, so the biggest part of your mind has kept track of every single thing that you've ever experienced in your entire life and even has catalogs of what your parents and your grandparents and your great grandparents went through too. So this is why sometimes there can be all this noise. You mentioned decision, right? A lot of times we're operating in this indecision. I remember, it's like, do I stay or do I go? Right? We think these are the only two options.
Yes.
And that's never the case. There's another way. Oh, I can step into totally being me and see this unconditional love for this beautiful being next to me, right? Like there's a total difference when you see that there are more there like we're called for more. We're called for more, but not necessarily as much about doing more. It's about being more. And then that makes it easier and effortless to do.
Mhm.
See, when there's a peace of mind, I can't tell you how many people I hear like, I'm ready for a peace of mind. Well, your greatest wealth is your peace of mind, body, and soul. Because that way, all of your amazingness just comes out. It can't help but to come out. There's probably stories in each one of your listeners, right, that are too so powerful. Is when, if they came out, if we shared them, people would connect to them. But a lot of times we hold it in. It comes with a lot of emotions. It comes with a lot of memories, right? And a lot of times we can either hear the call for our life or we can continue to endure the pain fighting against it. And I used to think, why me? Why the heck? The normal person doesn't go through all this craziness. Like, God, is this normal? And he said, it was so funny. The message was, there's a message in the mess.
Mhm.
And the message is not just for you, but it's
Mhm.
for every single person that you are called to be able to talk with, to connect to, who may be going through the same similar situations. Every situation is different, but you can be able to see even them and hold the space for them getting on the other side of their freedom too. See, what happens is a lot of times we don't want change. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, the only constant is change. I can see that from my children. They change every single moment, every single day, especially that first age or year or two. So we resist change. The unconscious mind resists change. So even the body will want to fight against change. But when you learn to be able to embrace change and pivot, like, say for instance, It used to be if something happened, oh, you got to pick up your daughter from school. Why do I got to do this? Versus, okay, cool. I get to adjust my schedule, and there lies the beauty of entrepreneurship, and then be totally present with her and get back on it again tomorrow. It's those pivots. The more the person who has the most flexibility, behavioral flexibility, is the one who actually can control the system. So a lot of times we think that, oh my gosh, all this is happening to me, but we have more control than we think. And it doesn't have to be this like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. A lot of times when we hold on to, and I'm talking not talking about control from like this, the energy of this must happen. I'm talking about the energy of, okay, I have control of this thing. I don't have control of this thing. I can be able to move forward in this. Oh, I can't do anything about that right now. God, you got that? Okay, cool. Right. But I'm able to keep moving forward, not in this place of the energy of have to, must, but the energy of I get to, I can, I love to, right? It's a totally different energy because when we have that other energy, we're trying to hold on to something so long, we actually can prevent the very thing that we're trying to go after from coming into fruition.
Yeah, those were all echoes of the last message. Ah,
Oh, good.
so whoever is out there, I'm gonna say you all needed to hear that a second time.
I want you to send
There
it to
may
me
be
so
a
I can hear
message.
it.
You said flexibility, and I was thinking about flexibility and how we become flexible. I am very intent about regulating this nervous system. Why is it that change is so hard? Because the body is designed to keep us safe. And moving outside of what's familiar does not feel safe to the body. It does not feel safe to the brain. So it's hard. We think it's hard, but when we work on regulating the nervous system, when we work on doing things like I talk about breathing, when we work on our breath and how to extend, elongate the exhale, when we do things that are going to bring comfort and ease into this nervous system, it's so much easier to deal with change. It's so much easier to say, that's something that I don't have control over. And like I said to you all a couple of weeks ago, it is what it is. Not from this cavalier place of I don't care, but from this deep inner knowing that that's not my thing to handle. And I'm okay with that. Right? So flexibility, understanding before we even get to behavioral flexibility, having flexibility in this body that ushers us into this space of having behavioral flexibility. So we are getting short on time. This is the part I always dislike, but you have something that I want you to touch on really quickly. Um, if you've not already, I know you've not announced it in this way, but you have something called a MIND acronym.
Oh,
Now, I
yes.
want you to share that
Okay.
quickly with
Okay.
the audience so that they can get that juiciness.
Okay. Okay. So the word that you want to write down is mind, MIND. And the M stands for mindset matters. A lot of times we're not aware. So the computer, as it does its calculations, is not really aware of the beauty of what the CPU provides. It just operates based on, the ones and zeros. And it's the same thing with our mind. We're not aware of what's going on in our mind consciously a lot because we're just going through the motions of what we're doing, how we're operating, how we're showing up. But when I say the mindset matters, it's like really stepping into knowing who you are and um who you are and who you think you are, like letting them align. So the mind is mental and emotional. You got a lot of mental health crises right now happening. And again, yes, it keeps track of everything that you've experienced. Like, how do we get results when we're trying to go for something? We get results based on our actions. And how we take those actions are based on our emotions. And how we take our those emotions or how we manage those emotions or what's happening there, they're based on our thoughts. And how our thoughts are based on our programming. So start thinking about, okay, what are the patterns? What are the limiting beliefs? What are the emotions that I'm feeling about a particular area of life, right? First of all, you could ask that question and then ask, okay, well, where did all this stuff come from? Oh, I'm mad at this person because this situation happened with my family. Or I'm mad, right? Like you'll have those patterns and those linkages. And once you have even awareness of where it all came from, then you can be able to shift it. So, for example, I mentioned how it used to be I would stand up in front and talk in front of people and it'd be like ums and ahs and nervousness and all of the like sweat dripping. Like I had a belief it's not safe to be seen. An unconscious belief that I was never aware of consciously. But it wasn't until I was able to process that, to eradicate that. I'm like, well, dang, I love being seen. Okay, see me, hear me, feel me, right? So therefore, you know that it's safe for you to be seen, heard, and felt. Right. So there's a lot of beauty and understanding about the mind, but not just for yourself, also how you communicate with other people. I mentioned like what do you do with some people their stories are too traumatic, it's too difficult to share, or they can't express. But what can you see that's not being said? What's happening with their energy? What's happening? What significant emotional event has happened? Where's the patterns of that? So you can see whether they're showing up as their person. Maybe I did a video a couple of weeks about what do you do when you feel attacked,
Mhm.
right? Like you're doing something, you're shining, all of a sudden somebody comes and attacks you. Hopefully not physically, that's a whole nother level. But what about verbal, like mental and emotional attacks? They may not have anything to do with you, but the unconscious mind takes everything personally, which
Often
is
have nothing to do with you. I'm sorry for the interjection.
most times
Well,
nothing.
it has nothing
Exactly.
to do with you. Yes.
Oh, exactly. So then when you're aware of that, you're like, oh, I don't have to take this person. Okay, this is it. You see, it's like a whole different thing. Now the mindset is so powerful because you want to be able to make sure that you elevate and understand your mind as much as possible. So therefore you can talk to anyone, anytime, anywhere with a deeper level communication and connection, not just the surface level, because you might just get an overreaction or but when you understand where all that's coming from, it is literally the game changer for business life harmony and work life harmony.
Yeah. I love that we say mindset and I throw other things out when we feel like we're being attacked. Different word, feel, because often it's a physiological sensation that shows up and then we respond to that. And again, it's an invitation. That's the awareness. And that's all that we're here to do is to help you become aware. Notice so often we are disconnected from what's going on in our body because we've been persuaded against that, dissuaded. Don't pay attention to your gut. Don't pay attention to what you feel. You have to think. You have to be a great thinker. Like that's the information we've been given. But the wisdom of this vessel that our souls are housed in is always talking to us. So when you feel the attack, you go to the feeling and then you mention the origin. What is that? Why do I have that feeling? Oh, because mama, I remember her saying as a child that no one should ever talk to you in this tone. And if they do, that means da 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 da, like hypothetically, right? But unconsciously, we don't know that, consciously, we don't know that this is what's playing out. So the awareness is, curiosity. I feel something. What am I thinking? Why did that thought show up? And is that true? Questioning, questioning all of it.
Oh, that's so powerful. Oh, that's so powerful. That's one of the things I would tell my students and clients, like, celebrate your overreactions. Don't beat yourself up because you overreacted. I don't think I have not overreacted since like 2017, 16. I remember the very last one, and it was so profound because I'm like, you can see yourself doing it, but there's nothing you can do to stop it. But then right after, I'm like, oh, where did this come from? Where was this? Oh, it was because my husband almost died. I didn't process that. I had to, all these things we're not aware of. So it's like celebrate your overreaction, celebrate those feelings in your body, because yes, that's when you get to figure out, okay, what's really going on. A lot of times we stuff it down or we ignore it. This is where a lot of the smoking, the drinking, the drugs people want is, but it creates more weight to stuff it down. And a lot of times we're like, I can't let this go. If I let this go, who am I? Well, the thing is, when you let it go, you really step into who you are. And I
Yes.
know it may not be easy to let it go, but that's why you got support. You got Coach Catherine, you got everyone she brings on, you got an army of support. And a lot of times we think that we're in it by ourselves and no one understands how we feel. That's totally not true.
Totally not true. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm sitting here like, this is why we needed to have this conversation.
Yes. Are you ready for the I?
Yes, I am ready for the I.
Okay. The I is the inner game wins the outer game. Now, I'm not really a fan of the word game because I've learned on my journey life is not a game. But you know what it is? It's a simulation, right? What we think about, we bring about. We're on automation from the mind, right? So what happens is a lot of times we think that our problems are these external things. And yes, they could be, but when you get a clarity and resolution from the inner game of what's going on, letting that lead back to wholeness. I think that's really what we're talking about here is having a wholeness of your body, being comfortable in your skin, being comfortable with your thoughts and your emotions, being your best friend, not your worst enemy, right? So that inner game, when you step in, when you resolve the conflict there, it literally magnifies every single thing that you want to, or you're called to be able to have. It comes towards you faster, much faster because there's total harmony inside. It's like you're operating with this consistent intrinsic motivation. Whereas even if anything externally happens, so here's what usually happens. Okay, I'm on this business journey or I'm on this life journey. Oh my gosh, a significant emotional event happened. Somebody died, somebody broke up, and then I'm back down here. And then, okay, we got to climb up the hill. Oh my gosh, this other significant emotional event happened. I don't know, school got blown up, something happens, and it brings us back down. What we are called for is what I like to say total exponential acceleration, meaning that we are rising. We are still consistent with our message. We are soaring. We are saying all this stuff is happening, but we know that the purpose, the bigger picture that we're going for, that we're in, is so much greater than what these little surface things are happening that it's going to make an impact. So all the things that are the challenges now will not be an issue for the future generation. Hopefully so. Prayerfully so. But you see what I mean? It's because when we get caught down, there's lives literally being lost. I want everyone to listen to this so very clearly. There are lives literally being lost as a result of you not showing up in your entire full light. I'm going to repeat that again. I mean, not just a little light, because a lot of times our dreams are so big, but then more than our conscious mind can handle, that we create our own glass ceiling. And so, Coach Catherine, you talked about going back to the comfort zone. Okay, we're going to freedom. All of a sudden, we hit this uncomfortable zone, and then we want to go back into the comfort zone. Well, I'm here to tell you, you go and you get in that uncomfortable zone, you be comfortable with the uncomfortable, you continue to change and evolve, and eventually you will get into your flow zone. Where then it's like you're not fighting against the wind, you are the wind. And
Wow.
everyone feels that. And it's a beautiful thing.
You are the wind. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. In. N stands for never stop rising. Never stop rising. You're gonna have a lot of people that'll be like, "What the heck are you doing? What?" So I have a dear friend of mine, I love her to death. And one of the things when I was leaving the government, and I was like, I think I want to do this coaching thing. And she's like, "Why the heck do you want to do that? You have a perfectly good job. What in the world is wrong with you? Just stay where you're at." Now, if I would have listened to her, I wouldn't be where I am now. Lives wouldn't have been transformed by me just facilitating and showing up in my full light. Like so many lives would have been lost even more so because, we like to deal with the heavy, heavy. We don't look at like trauma or grief or loss or anything like a bad thing. We actually look at it like a beautiful thing. And I like to be able to help people go through those stages of the process of grief and of loss and uncertainty so they get to the acceptance and the beauty and the owning of who they are and how to be able to have peace with their story so they can share it from the mountaintops and be a beautiful testimony for someone else who has no clue what's going on. And that is a-okay too. So we're not broken. A lot of times people think we're broken. Here's the thing, the message is not for everyone. It's for the right ones. There's going to be people in your world, even the people closest to you, they might be like, "What the heck are you doing? Just go ahead and go do something else." Right? But the reality is, we can accept and appreciate their model of the world, even if we don't agree with it. And that is okay because we're not supposed to. They were not given the vision. You were.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, don't cast your pearls before swines.
Right. And then also know that so here's how I look at intellectual health. This is another part of it. Intellectual health, a lot of times we think that we know everything. Oh my gosh, we totally know everything. That is the worst way to be. Okay. And I remember, in the height of my career when I was like, I just know everything. I know everything about a little,
Right.
little, little piece that
Yes.
has a little bit to do with the whole big piece. So
What a
look at
trap.
it like this, right? A piece of pie has 8 slices. Look at that as intellectual health. One of those pieces, only one of those pieces is everything that you know. There's another piece is everything that you know that you don't know. But the rest of the pie, those other 6 slices, you don't know what you don't know. And that's why you can be open and curious and be able to be that light to be able to really receive. Give yourself permission to receive from anyone who is in your world. Okay. And the D. The D is really awesome. Distractions destroy progress. Distractions destroy progress. It's about recognizing that you only have so much capacity. You're human. A lot of times we think that we're robots. Like I remember operating like the speedboat. Okay, do this, do this. I remember when I was working on my PhD, I had 4 jobs. When I was working at the government, I had 2 other jobs. What the heck is that? That was all a lot of distractions because really there was a bigger picture that I was resistant to. So your distractions, look at them in 2 ways. Like look at them from, it can be either these external voices, these external situations, or it can be like the internal voices. Sometimes even our own thoughts, our own emotions can be a big distraction from what we're supposed to be doing. We procrastinate, we have paralysis, we have overwhelm. You ever had like a popping moment where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I just want to go and watch Netflix." We overloaded our circuit. So being aware of the mind, this is why it's so important to operate in less thinking and overthinking and more trusting. Then you have more capacity to be more productive in a much easier way than how we were trained and programmed to work harder.
We're gonna have you come back.
Okay. Thank you. I would love that.
We are running out of time. um,
Yes.
I want to. I'm not going to do it right now. I'll do it. But what I would want for you to do is to tell those who are listening how to get in touch with you. I know that you have a free gift, so please share that information. And then when I close, I typically close with a little prayer. So I'll come right behind you, close with a little prayer and close us out.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the best way to find me is at anotherlevelliving.com. Once again, that's anotherlevelliving.com, all spelled out. Connect to us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram and YouTube. Check out some of our videos as well. We'd be and looking forward to hearing what your feedback are from the awesome wisdom that we share. And for you today, I have a gift. It's called Seven Secrets to More Business and Life Harmony. Now, even if you're not in business and you're working for someone else, that's also great because these will be able to support you as well. It's ways to be able to enhance your time, your money, and your emotional freedom in business and in life. And so I take you on a really great journey with a free class and guide. And the way to be able to get that gift is to go to anotherlevelliving.com/harmony. Anotherlevelliving.com/harmony, or you can even opt in on the homepage. It'll take you on the same awesome journey.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing for me. I'm sure it has been just as amazing for those who are listening. Just really rich. And I am grateful that we've had an opportunity to connect. I love your spirit. I love your wisdom and knowledge. And just thank you for
Thank
gracing
you.
us with your presence.
Thanks so much for having me too.
And this week, as we begin to wrap up, I am simply going to reiterate what Heather has given us by way of her MIND acronym. I pray that you come to understand that mindset matters. I pray that you will come to understand that the inner game simulates the outer game. What's going on inside is a reflection of what you see outside, and vice versa. I pray that you will never stop rising, just connecting to what we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks in expansion and what that means. I pray that you will connect and understand that that is your word. It is time for you to rise. It is time for you to expand. And I pray that you will come to understand that distractions destroy progress, that you will recognize the distractions. You will recognize how those distractions are destroying your progress. And if you find that you need assistance moving forward, that you will reach out to either Dr. Heather, you will reach out to myself or anyone else whom you feel comfortable with and will help guide you into the place where it is that you are truly supposed to be, the person who it is that you are truly supposed to be. And as I close, I want to remind you that in this life, we get to choose. So choose to listen to the place from where your heart speaks and choose to live a sensational life. Peace and blessings.
Thank you for listening to Where Her Heart Speaks with Coach Catherine, where Catherine aims to challenge and disrupt ineffective thoughts and behaviors to help you not only embody peace, joy, calm, and certainty, but also help you live the life you've always dreamed of living. Follow Catherine on Facebook and Instagram at I Am Catherine James and visit www.catherinejames.com. Remember, to live the life of your dreams, you must go within and return to the place where your heart speaks.